Okay. Let me. Audio is live now. Audio's live now.
What are you going to take a month off, Omar, or what? What's the plan?
I don't know. When is Yeah, I would think so. Free agency start. Yeah, we got to come back like the week
We
before.
got a few weeks.
Huh?
Like a month before it. When is the official date of free agency this year?
Like March 16th or something like that.
Yeah, that's in my head too. So must be.
So I think we could do that 3 weeks, and then come back week before free agency and pretend like we know what we're talking about.
Hey, we'll pretend because as we've seen, they're pretending, right?
They've been pretending for like 2 decades.
Come on, it's a new era, new optimism.
Hey, you must have read the beginning of my script, Dave.
I did.
It's a new era. All right. Let me tweet out. Did you tweet it out, Dave?
Retweet. I did about 10 minutes ago. I'll do it again.
Yeah. Let's do it again. Beginning now. Hold on.
All right.
Woo. Okay. Damn it.
Did you just send it out?
No, I'm sending it out now. But you can hold on 1 second. Yeah. Dave Hyde Sports. Miami Dolphins. Okay, hold on 1 second, Dave, and it shall be tweeted out. Okay, it has your name in it, so you are tagged.
All right, here we go.
I'm taking my final chug. Oops. Offensive stats. Okay. Sean, I'm ready when you're ready. Yeah.
Is that SIP a weekly notice? Like, is that become a thing now?
It's been a thing for like a year, Dave.
Well,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just too nervous to notice, Omar.
I don't know. I don't know how you don't need to drink during the show. It's like I'm like a camel here. I need water.
I'm like the camel. If you're doing an analogy, I'm the camel. I don't.
Yeah, you are the camel. Yes.
You're the turtle. You're the turtle. You need water.
All right, let's rock. Okay. We finally officially begun the new era of the Miami Dolphins. The new era of the Miami Dolphins. 6th era under Steve Ross. Well, actually, 6th era for me. I think it's the 4th era of Steve Ross as the owner of the team.
Right. Sounds right. Yeah.
No more tanking, Dave. No more rebuilding. Mike McDaniel, who was named the franchise's 12th head coach, I don't count interims, inherits a Dolphins team that produced back-to-back winning seasons for the first time since 2002 and 2003, while this franchise is intertwined in a poop storm of controversy stemming from Brian Flores' firing and his class action lawsuit. This team needs some minor tweaking that could keep them in or put them in playoff contention or in the playoff conversation. We've been here for quite a while where December games are relevant, Dave. We have only punched it in the postseason ticket twice, 2008 and 2016. Is this going to be the era that fixes the problem, Dave? We've heard Mike McDaniel speak to his fan base, his players, the NFL community last Thursday. What were your impressions of the Miami Dolphins' new head coach?
My impressions is he's obviously smart. He's quirky in his sense of humor. You don't see some of the one-liners and quips that he made in a normal NFL coach's press conference. I kind of like that. I hope he makes it not just because it's good for business to cover a winner and more fun, but also because I hope that personality where you don't have to be the dictator coach can succeed in the NFL. And there are, Pete Carroll wasn't that guy. And there are a few other guys on the landscape now, younger guys coming up from
the Sean McVays, the Kyle Shanahans, the Matt LaFleurs. And interestingly, that's the coaching tree that he's on. That's the coaching tree that I admire. I'm a West Coast coaching tree. If you're off the Steve Walsh, if you're a fruit that bears fruit that produced a tree off the Steve Walsh tree.
Bill Walsh, not Steve Walsh, but
Bill Walsh. Damn it, Steve Walsh is the University of Miami quarterback. Off the Bill Walsh tree, not the Steve Walsh tree. I'm interested. I'm intrigued. I like that West Coast offense. It's a quick passing game. I like balanced teams. And if you're really into the zone blocking run schemes, particularly the outside zone, which is what Denver's run for quite a while, going back to when he grew up in the NFL with the Shanahans and Gary Kubiak's, and he moved with Gary Kubiak to Houston. This is encouraging. I love those styles of teams. I love those styles of offenses. And I'm intrigued and interested to see whether or not he will be successful. We've seen so many different coaches, and they're generally all from the same basically have the same background, rookie head coach. You just don't know. You really don't know. Did anything he said alleviate or add concern for you?
Well, what I was looking for more, and we'll get into this, I know, is the coaching staff. We'll talk about that coming up. But, there wasn't anything that he was told to his quarterback, okay? And so did it alleviate or change anything? No. Now, his answer on the plane, as we talked about last week, was, you're my guy, basically, put an arm around him. They never met. And his answer in the press conferences was he's one of 53. So he's one of 53, but the way he has addressed it, he's number one of 53. Okay. I mean, when you go into when you come off the plane, your first public conversation that fans, media, players see you is my guy. Then he's number one of 53. Okay.
Does it mean that the other players who didn't get a call aren't his guy?
Well, they're not as much his guy. I mean, that's obvious, isn't it?
As we've discussed multiple times, I'm not interested in hyping up a made-for marketing commercial moment.
I agree. I'm with you on that. But to me, it went beyond a made-for-marketing moment. It was what this organization has said since they got rid of Brian Flores, which is Tua is the future. Now, what's the option? And let it play out. I agree.
There is no. What do you mean? What's the option? There is no option.
Right. There's no.
Unless you're going to go get Jimmy Garoppolo and bring him here.
Right. So. Go 1,000% in on him because he's your only option right now. And, let's be fair. He deserves to have talent put around. He deserves to see who he can be.
He deserves a running game. He deserves an offensive line that can protect him.
And he deserves a coach who
believes in him.
Well, I mean, we don't really know what McDaniel thinks about it. He hasn't even practiced with him.
That's true. That's true. it's unfair to say that he believes in him because we haven't seen him throw the ball. He hasn't seen him throw the ball live yet. Right. Roger Dodger has our first question, Dave. Are the Fins in another rebuild, or is this a patch job for the new head coach?
Well, what you do with a smart franchise, you make smart decisions. It isn't always, we have to tear it all the way down, trade players for draft picks, all that. So
when's the last time this franchise made smart decisions, Dave?
About 1996.
Okay.
Was probably and they made some smart decisions. But look, that's what you got to do. You have some good players, you have some young players. Build on that. And the idea isn't to be the seventh team in the playoffs. Look, I know the bar's so low here. If they make the playoffs, people go nuts.
While I like your theory that they have some good young players, name me the difference maker.
That's what it's going to come down to, right? Well, let's see what these young players become in their third and fourth year. That's the whole idea of the rebuild, right? I mean, no?
I don't know anymore. The rebuild was about getting an elite quarterback that can take you to the next level, and we didn't do that. I mean, if we're going to be honest, we didn't do that. Like, the Dolphins didn't do that. So now it's about kind of making the best of it. Like, okay, we got some overcooked chicken. Can we make a casserole out of that overcooked chicken? Like, how about some chicken soup?
They have a 500 team right now. Okay, yeah. Probably. Can through good offseason decisions and smart coaching, a new system, turn that into a step forward next year, and the following year another step forward to sustained contention? That's the idea. That's what 20 teams are trying to do. Okay, there's only 5 teams out there probably know they're going to be look. Bill Walsh, Jimmy Johnson said there's only 8 teams you have to worry about because everybody else is going to beat themselves. Okay, and that's. The Dolphins right now are in that other group. Can they get to that first group is what they're trying to do.
Everybody else is going to beat themselves. Yeah, that pretty much sounds like the Dolphins. They're gonna have that Tennessee moment where you just beat yourself. I don't think it's a rebuild from this standpoint. Even though I don't think the defense is as set as people think it is. The offense clearly needs to be completely rebuilt. As Dave Hyde once said, Nexus and Omar, just clear the shells.
Receivers. Clear the receivers. As many as you can.
Oh, no. Let's just clear the shell. I guess we can leave some linemen. We'll figure out which linemen, maybe 3 of them are salvageable. The running backs, I think the running backs are salvageable. I like some of these running backs. They've got a couple of them have to be re-signed, but offense needs to be rebuilt. Special teams needs to be rebuilt. Defense needs to be tinkered. It's not necessarily a rebuild, but it's a renovation, Dave. It's a renovation.
We're going through. I love this. It's like we need one of those house show guys to come in here and talk about what stage are the Dolphins in. Those specials where they tell you how to rebuild a house. All right, DB Man has our next question. I know McDaniel is planning on calling his own plays. Do you know if a lot of head coaches do this, and wasn't that part of the problem with Gase?
I would say about 1/4 of the league in terms of head coaches, calls their own plays either offensively or defensively. I'm never comfortable with it because I think there's so much more to the game. But then again, Andy Reid does it. The greats do it. The Andy Reid is the gold standard for me. Now Sean McVay does it. Kyle Shanahan does it. Not that Kyle Shanahan is a great model of coach. I'm never comfortable with it. I think if you've got a quality staff, a real quality staff, and we'll discuss the staff a little bit later, it'll help. Like a lot of times while Adam Gase was doing the offense, Darren Rizzi handled the head coach stuff, not just special teams, but challenges and everything, because Gase was just locked in. Gase didn't even watch defense, which kind of made no sense to me. But that was Gase. He didn't really pay attention to defense anyway, and unfortunately, his offense was never good. So, does it make me, as Joe Philbin would say, queasy? Yes, it does make me a little queasy. But then, if you really look at the tree that he's coming from, all of his guys, all of his peers, the people he grew up in the NFL with, they called their plays. And if you are going to be a head coach, do it the way that you want to do it. Hell, Brian Flores called the defensive plays in the second half of last season. He lied about it, but he did it. And kind of screwed up the situation now that a defensive coordinator has been hired that got his wings clipped last year. So now you don't know who's responsible for what or how, when they got good, it was Flores calling plays. And this is confirmed, locked and loaded, written in pen. Do it however you want to do it, because in 3 years, when I'm calling for, actually, the kiss of death comes from Dave Hyde. So when Dave Hyde says it's time to fire you,
3 years. That's a long time for an old man to be around, Omar. I think it'll be you. I think it'll be you calling for him.
Not that old, Dave.
Here's my thoughts on this, Omar. You look at the Super Bowl. Zach Taylor and Sean McVay called their own plays. There's a million ways up the mountain. Okay, you do you. Okay, if this is the way that you think to coach, go for it. Because you can point to anybody and say, oh, this guy succeeded, and then the other guy succeeded at doing it another way. You got to do yourself. Now, I'm with you. I'm a fan of not calling the head coach being the coach of the whole team. Okay, because I've seen it splinter where, I mean, the Adam Gase problem wasn't so much calling plays. It was he didn't ever talk to the defense. I mean,
well, he didn't. I don't think he lost Vance Joseph. I think he lost the confident defense.
Yes, okay, but over a 3-year span, you're going to lose coaches. There's a good chance so you got to have that broad vision. I'm doing a book now with Jimmy Johnson, and every Monday.
That's breaking news.
Yeah. In his meeting, the first meeting he had was with special teams. It wasn't with offense. It wasn't with defense. The whole team would sit and watch special teams plays. Why? To tell them these are all important. The whole team's important. And that's, to me, in my frame of mind, that's what a head coach does. Now, people are winning the other way. So again, there's a million ways up the mountain, and you do, what you need to do.
Daniel wants to know, what can Mike McDaniel do next season that would lead you to believe he's an upgrade over the previous offensive guru hired, Gase and Joe Philbin?
Well, let's put the bar out there of when, everybody talks about the awful offenses of Brian Flores and all that. He had a great offense the second year. That scored, as you said, came out and wrote many times, the Chan Gailey offense scored more points than any Dolphin team since 1985. So when you say, what can they do? You score points. I mean, you have a good offense. You have a functional offense. And we can come up with all different ideas. Well, Tua's got to make steps forward and get some wide receivers who fit into the scheme and fix the line and all that. But if you're saying what to do, let's look at production. Keep your eye on the production.
Top 15. That's my bar. That's my standard. I want you one step above the average in the NFL, mid-tier. Just cross that line. Points, offensive production, third down efficiency, red zone efficiency. Just cross that bar to be above average. Just one little inch above average. That's my standard for the offense. This defense, man, Dave, their backs got to be tired. This defense has been carrying this franchise for 20 years.
For the most part, yeah. And the couple years that they have had a good offense, they've gone to the playoffs. 2008, they had the spark of the wild cop, but they had a Chad Pennington. They had a good. In 2016, that was Ryan Tannehill's his one healthy year under Adam Gase, and that was a productive offense.
Yeah. Adam Gase had, and people, I hate defending Adam Gase because his Jets tenure kind of ruined it. But Adam Gase played here 25 games with a backup quarterback. That's a tremendous amount of games. And he's got one less win than Brian Flores, who everybody says, oh, he's a good coach. What are you doing? I'm not saying Gase was a success or that he was a horrible coach or whatnot. He had maturing to do, as does all of them. I'm sure Mike McDaniel does. Joe Philbin, I want the organization of Joe Philbin with the personality of Adam Gase, with the detailed nature of Brian Flores, with the leadership of Tony Sperano. That's what I want.
I'd take Don Shula or Jimmy Johnson, frankly. I mean, simple. Let's keep it simple.
Yeah, If I don't, I'm working off what I got, Dave. I didn't get Don Shula.
What you're saying is there are good components to every failing coach, and there absolutely are. But they just haven't put it together here. And a lot of the times, like Brian Flores, I think would, if he ever gets a job again, I don't know that he will, but if he does, he'll be a better coach right away. He should be. He should learn.
You think, but Adam Gase didn't learn jack squat.
Okay. Let me preface that by saying if he takes some time to reflect, he has time, and he doesn't jump into a next head coaching job in a week like Adam Gase did with the Jets, which was the dumbest hire of all time. But yeah, look. There's a learning curve with Mike McDaniel. Let's start here. What can he do to make us believe shorten that learning curve as much as possible?
Absolutely. That's a good answer there. Well, Mike McDaniel's in the process of assembling his coaching staff, which we've always said is the toughest challenge of all first-time head coaches. They don't come with a ready-made staff. He wasn't able to land Broncos head coach Vic Fangio to run his defense. I've always said it makes no sense why these coaches who just get fired, they've got $5 million coming in this year, $5 million coming in next year. Why are you jumping to go work for free? Because the money's offset language. But anyway, that's a whole different discussion. Problem is, he retained Josh Boyer as his defensive coordinator when Josh Boyer happened to be the coach who was calling plays when the defense was struggling, got his wings clipped, pretty much demoted, roles taken away from him. And when the defense improved the second half of the year, it was Brian Flores calling plays and Gerald Alexander building the game plan. Boyer ensured that Gerald Alexander was fired, so there was no power struggle. And I can tell you this is a fact. Players on defense are not very pleased with Josh Boyer being named defensive coordinator. We will see what happens here because they know that Boyer's scheme, concepts, approach did not lead to success last year. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. The Dolphins also retained Danny Crossman as special teams coordinator, but last year, Crossman's unit struggled mightily. He admitted himself, one of the worst units on the team. The Dolphins also hired Chargers run game coordinator and offensive line coach Frank Smith as the team's offensive coordinator. Recently, fresh news, they've hired Darrell Bevell, who was the Jacksonville Jaguars offensive coordinator, and he's going to be Miami's pass game coordinator and QB coach. They have also hired Wes Welker as the wide receiver coach, Chandler Henley as the assistant quarterback coach, Boston College's Matt Applebaum, who's going to be hired as the offensive line coach. Eric Stootsville was retained as a running back coach. And then we get to tight end coach Joe Embry, who comes over from the 49ers staff. Defensively, we mentioned Josh Boyer. Also retained was cornerback coach Charles Burke, and linebacker coach Anthony Campanelli, and a defensive line coach, Austin Clark. Couple hires probably still need to be made. Offensive line coach Tyrone McKinney was hired. So couple additions need to be made. Couple assistant position coaches need to be hired. But Dave, what are you most interested about the coaching staff? What do you find most interesting about the coaching staff hires, and what concerns you?
Well, I like what he did. You look at the offense. He got a couple guys from San Francisco who know what he's going to implement. That's important. Having coaches who are comfortable with what you look at the offensive line coach, the assistant, the offensive coordinator. Another guy familiar with the system they're going to run. All this is important. And you got some age in Darrell Bevel, a guy who's been around the league and has seen a lot of things. Very important. But look, I wrote before they started the whole process here, they wanted the new coach to take Tua, and they wanted, if possible, to keep the defensive staff together. Okay, and that's a strange thing to ask a new head coach. Okay, usually you bring in guys and you say, "What do you think of this? What would you do? Who would you hire?" Now, Vic Fangio would have filled so many gaps from McDaniel being an offensive mind and Young to a very good, one of the top 2, 3, 4 defensive coordinators in the league. So I don't really have an opinion on Josh Boyer and all that. It's just it's when a coach comes in, usually they fill out their own staff, and most of the defensive staff is there, which is it's gonna be a little odd for it'll be interesting to see how this all works. Inside, when you've lost a couple games and everybody, are they hanging together? Are they not? Not that this is Jacksonville of this year, okay? But you saw what happens when a coach is not on the same page with his assistants. Things come leaking out, damaging things to the team in a bad season. And I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying you want everybody on the same page from the start. We'll see how this works out.
Yeah, I like the veteran you got 2 grizzled veteran offensive line coaches. They both specialize in zone blocking schemes. They both have respectful resumes. Matt Applebaum has, he's got 3 top draft prospects in this draft, including the best center. Hey, Dolphins need a center. Let's do it. If you feel like that's your guy. I like the fact that some veterans who played the game, like Wes Welker, were added. That's going to help. I like Eric Stootsville. While I didn't think he was part of a good offensive coordinator situation, and he's only had one really successful year run game in 2016 here, I think he's a very accomplished, competent coach, and he specializes, or supposedly specializes, in zone schemes. Unfortunately, Miami never ran any. So it'll be interesting to see what comes of this. But in terms of not liking, let's be real about it. They fired their best assistant coach in Gerald Alexander, and that firing was because Josh Boyer felt threatened. And I just don't think that that's a good way to do business. Now, hey, everybody's got to put together their staff how they feel comfortable. But now you better make sure you got a good secondary. You better make sure you got a good safety coach, because you got 2 young safeties in Javon Holland and Brandon Jones, who are the future of this franchise and should be bookend players for this team. And I can tell you for certain that Gerald Alexander was responsible for most of their success. So hopefully you don't take a step back from that. We'll see.
All right. Kurt asked Omar, will Josh Boyer struggle to be an effective defensive coordinator given what happened last season and the reported power struggle taking place on defense? Will he be able to get players to buy into what he's selling?
Woo. I think this is going to be a situation where you're going to be purging and starting fresh, Dave, unfortunately. And we'll see how free agency plays out. But, this impacts Emmanuel Ogbah. It impacts Brandon Jones. It impacts Xavier Howard. It impacts the secondary. You got to get those guys to buy in. I think the linebacker group is going to be purged, except for a couple pieces anyway. Defensive linemen, they just do work. But, if you have options, you're going to, you utilize those options and explore what your other options are. But there's a complaint that under Boyer, they play too much man. They didn't use the amoeba package to blitz enough. And players don't want to go back to what he was calling. So I'm interested to hear and see what Boyer learned from this experience. What I don't like is, and I can tell you this, it bothers me that we were lied to all year, most of the year. When fans were suspecting that this switch had taken place, and they're like, oh, no, absolutely no switch taking place. Boyer's still the defense coordinator. Boyer's still calling the plays. Boyer's still doing everything. And unfortunately, that just wasn't the case. And now, somebody took credit for something that they didn't do, which is a little bit uncomfortable for me.
Well, that plays right into what was going on offensively too, and this is something Brian Flores really has to grow up from. When they let it be accepted that George Godsey was calling the plays, when it was really Charlie Fry, and you think Godsey liked that with the struggling offense, he's taking blame for calling, and he's not doing it, and Brian Flores is just letting everybody play. No, that was wrong. Those were careers and reputations and beyond that, just internal honesty at stake in a coaching staff and a team.
Yeah.
Forget what's being said outside. Inside the team, they know what's going on. And players and other people were like, wait a second, why are you saying Godsey's calling the plays when he's not? And I assume it was the same on defense that, players, wait a second, why are you saying Boyer's calling the plays if somebody else? So and this has nothing to do with the media. It has nothing to do with fans. It has to do with internal honesty inside a team of how they operate and be accountable to each other. And so I think that's something Brian Flores would learn. But I'm curious, too. What did Josh Boyer learn? What's he going to do with this defense this year? Where are they going to go?
Yeah.
And what's Mike McDaniel comfortable with on a defense, too? I mean, we'll see. There's a lot of questions up in the air, like there are when any new regime.
But these people who think that, it's going to be picked up right where it left off. One, you were the number 18 defense in the NFL. Let's not act like you were good. Cumulatively 18. And yes, you sucked first half of the year. You were good second half of the year till right at the end. But cumulatively 18. Ogbah, major piece, going to demand major money. Xavier Howard, I always love when we talk about this situation. I always love that meme of that coach who says, after a victory, bring me my money. And that's Xavier Howard's situation. It's bring me my money or trade me. Those are your two options. And I really don't care which one it is. So we'll see how Mike, this is part of coaching. Mike McDaniel will have to address that. As Brian Flores, I give him credit because the organization initially took a hard stance, and then Flores took a look at his defense without Xavier Howard for 2 weeks and said, hey, let's figure this out. Let's figure this out. And they adjusted the contract. And Mike McDaniel's got to figure out how to appease his best player and get him to buy in. So it's going to be wonderful, Dave, in terms of the remake of this defense. And fans are going to be like, well, I thought they were good last year. What happened?
All right, Omar, feeding into that, Yuri asked, with Jared Alexander gone, should we expect a Javon Holland developmental setback?
Totally depends on who's going to be coaching that unit and who's going to be coaching those individuals. Now, if it becomes Josh Boyer, who has a secondary background and he takes over the safeties, right now no safety coach has been hired. So It'll be interesting to see what happens. I don't know. I don't know. But both of the individuals are very smart. They work hard. But Gerald Alexander was supposedly the guy who was telling them what to look for and what to expect on each given play. And coaching does matter. I mean, people don't realize how much it matters, but coaching does matter. If you give somebody a multiple choice test and you tell them two of the answers aren't applicable and they just have to pick from A or B, more than likely they're going to score higher on the test. And that really was what Gerald was bringing to the secondary and to these young players who, as we saw, started to blossom at the second half of the season, not necessarily in the first half. So who knows, Dave? Who knows?
All right, Daniel Booby Trap. Love these names. This assembled coaching staff feels kind of bland to me. More experienced than Flores' last staff, but still relatively young. What are your thoughts?
I don't know if they're relatively young. Frank Smith isn't young. Matt Applebaum, he's been around. He's not necessarily been in the NFL except for 2 internships. Darrell Bevel, not young. Eric Stutzville, not young. Joe Embry, not young. Danny Crossman, not young. Josh Boyer, not young. I am the only concern that I really have about this coaching staff is, and I always have the same concern with every new head coach. You need a gray beard. You need an old grizzled Dan Henning, old grizzled Jim Caldwell, who was initially hired on Brian Flores' staff, or then it became Chan Gailey. You need that old veteran who has led a team, who has dealt with the Xavier Howards, who has dealt with young players who can't give up the nightlife, and you go to them and say, hey, how do I handle this? To me, that is so important, and I don't see that on this staff. There's nobody who has been at the mountaintop from a leadership position handling what's going on. So that's a little bit concerning for me. And I'm just going to be honest, I'm not going to feel comfortable with the staff until there is a gray beard.
Yeah, I would say Darren Bevel, that was an important hire. He's in his 50s. He's been in the Super Bowls. He's been under fire in Super Bowls. He's been around the league. He fits that mold for me. Now he's not,
but he's never been the leader of a team. He's been an interim coach, but
he's been an offensive coordinator. I mean, he's been, to me, and a leadership role of the offense. I'm fine with that. But to the defense, yeah, there isn't that guy that this year. They've all been there. I mean, all the guys obviously they kept from the Dolphins have been there at least 3 years. Okay, on the defense, so they know the personnel, and that's helpful. And they know, they've been around the league now, but they don't have that. Again, Vic Fangio would have answered a lot of questions, and he decided to sit out this year. And when they ruined for him, I was like, whoa, that's a big time hire if they get him. And so we'll see where the defense goes now. Let's see here. All right, the Super Bowl came and went, and the game showed us how 2 different teams, which worked off 2 different blueprints, got to the game. Cincinnati Bengals struggles with Zach Taylor in the first 2 years. They went 2-14 in 2019 and earned the number 1 pick in the 2020 draft, a pick that will live in infamy to many Dolphin fans, which they used on Joe Burrow. In 2021, the Bengals doubled their previous win total, winning 4 games, and then they got hot late in the season. The Bengals finished the year 10-7, and then won the postseason games needed to advance to the Super Bowl. The Rams have been on they've been on a run for a while now. They worry about tomorrow's approach for most of Sean McVay's tenure. They don't worry about it at all tomorrow. They live for today. In 5 seasons, he's never had a losing year. He's played in a couple Super Bowls now and won his first one last week. The Rams got there by consistently and frequently trading draft picks for talented veterans like Matthew Stafford, Von Miller, Jalen Ramsey. It was an aggressive roster building approach. Which route would you prefer Omar?
Depends on where you are as an organization. Do you have the quarterback? That's the starting point, because it makes no sense to do what the Rams did unless you have the quarterback. And then, so they had Goff. They realized Goff wasn't good enough, and then they supersized it and upgraded it with Matthew Stafford, who I had said for 2 years somebody should go get. And I was like, Matthew Stafford. I don't know about Matthew Stafford. And, Sean McVay turns him into an elite player. And basically they go to the Super Bowl on his back and with riding the defense. But I love McVay's team proves that anything can happen if you can make the numbers work. And if you can sell players that, hey, we're gonna be contending for a title. Like Von Miller's been trying to get out of Denver for 2 years. He was trying to get to Miami last offseason. So the question is, how long? And Matt Stafford's been trying to get out of Detroit for 2 years. The Rams know what's going on from a back channel standpoint and figure out a way to make the deals work. And I like that approach. Now, the Cincinnati Bengals, they just sucked for a while. Stockpile draft picks, but what I found interesting is that they use those draft picks on skill players. And I don't know how I feel about that, especially considering their offensive line is trash. I mean, Isaiah Prince is starting at right tackle, and he didn't even belong on the Dolphins roster. So, I kind of think there has to be a balance. Now, clearly, you give Joe Burrow weapons, and that's a good thing, but you also need to protect him. He was sacked how many times in the Super Bowl?
7. 19 times in the postseason. He played the Super Bowl with now they're saying a torn MCL. So, I mean, that's no recipe for success. Now, who actually picked Cincinnati to go to the Super Bowl this year, though? Okay, I mean, everybody nationally ripped them for taking the receiver over Penny Sewell, right? And you see why they did. Jamar Chase is a horse. He's a number one. That's a number one receiver. Okay, playing wide, coming down with catches. You see that. Now, I don't like either of these models, though. To be honest with you, I don't like. The Rams basically don't have a draft. They don't have a draft coming up.
They don't need a draft. You don't need a draft.
They don't. Look, if you told me you'll win the Super Bowl if you don't do it, I'm all in. If you don't have a draft, I'm all in on that. But you're not guaranteed to win the Super Bowl. And were the Rams really the best team in the, there were like 3 or 4 teams they could have come up. The Bengals weren't the best team in the AFC. But they came out of it. So there were some good sports. Look, they had great seasons, great plays. I'm not taking away from them. But to say there wasn't some random luck involved, too, there was. And so I don't.
But you know what both teams prove? You need stars. You need difference makers.
Right.
The Rams went out and they just traded for difference makers available. Let's do it. Let's do the deal. Let's figure it out. Cincinnati drafted difference makers. And, I don't know what's the right approach, maybe the combination of two, but I think it does all start with having an upper echelon quarterback.
Here's the right approach. Make good decisions. Cincinnati, look at last offseason. Trey Hendrickson was there, defensive end rusher. He was their beast as a pass rusher. Now, you didn't see him much in the Super Bowl, but you look at his year. That's one of the reasons they got there. They drafted a kicker, the only kicker drafted in the that year in the draft, and he had he was 20 of 20 on field goals in the postseason. Some absurd number of field goals. Okay, but Cincinnati, which for years has made dumb decisions, in the last couple years they've made very smart decisions, and they got lucky with Joe Burrow.
I think that despite the fact that coaches are the scouting department, which I find troubling, I think that Cincinnati's done a good job drafting, and then to give the Rams credit, the Rams don't need early draft picks. And I've always said that if you have good scouting departments, you don't need a first round.
Who are the 2 best players on the Rams?
Aaron Donald
and Cooper Kupp. Those were draft picks. One was a 4th-round pick. One was a 1st-round pick. And I get, they throw the draft picks away. It'll be interesting if anybody else tries that model. Just throw the draft picks away for a year.
I mean, they haven't had a losing season in Sean McVay's tenure, which I find very interesting. Like, 5 years, no losing seasons. And let's not act like he inherited a great quarterback, because he really didn't. He polished him up. That quarterback got sent to Detroit. Looks like crap, as he did before Sean McVay got there. So I do think Sean McVay is the magic ingredient. I mean, that's the one thing I will say about Mike McDaniel. I went to the press conference hoping that he came off like Sean McVay. He didn't. But like Sean McVay, to me, is the gold standard of what you need now.
How does Sean McVay come off? I'm curious. I've listened to a couple of his press conferences. He's very intense. He's intense.
Polished, intelligent, articulate, ridiculous memory recall, charismatic, a salesman.
Let me give a little connection here. He went to Miami of Ohio.
Yes.
Frank Smith, the new offensive line coach or offensive coordinator, went to Miami of Ohio. And one of us went to Miami of Ohio. I'm just throwing that out there, Omar.
That makes you magic if you go to Miami of Ohio. Like, okay.
That's what you're saying. You said it.
Listen, I just doing research, I realized that his granddad built the 49ers.
Yeah, John McVay. And he was the 49ers, and he was with the Giants before that. So he's got.
So John McVay's a lifer, so he's nepotism, which I found very interesting. But hey, props to him for what he's done and what he's built. My hope is that I don't want the Kyle Shanahan model. I want the Sean McVay model. If I'm gonna pick somebody from that coaching tree for Mike McDaniel to be, I want him to be Sean McVay.
Well, Kyle Shanahan did the same model. They went out and they spent big for a quarterback, right?
Yeah. If you don't have a quarterback, you better go get one. That's how many years have we not learned that? I see that face. How many years have we...
racking through the years. How many years?
To 1999. It's come on. Let's stop pretending. Quarterbacks are the engine. Without the engine, the car goes nowhere.
All right, Michael has our next question. Any takeaways from 2 Super Bowl teams that McDaniel can use to strengthen the Fins?
No, not really. I think he's going to try to build the 49ers, and I'm okay with that. I don't think you can emulate Cincinnati Bengals without Joe Burrow, and unfortunately, and this is going to hurt Tuanon's feelings, I don't think that Tua is Joe Burrow. He's not. He's not. He doesn't play with that moxie and charisma. He's not. I'm sorry.
I don't think that's going out on a big limb there, Omar, though. I know.
No.
It's like
to be bothered by, Dave.
This of how we feel almost, because the backlash is coming from them.
Yeah, they're going to be in their feelings about it. I need Tua to step up as a leader. I expected a better leader than what has been delivered, and I don't care and want to hear anything about his upbringing, his background, the comparisons to. Ryan Fitzpatrick, because I hear from people who comparing him to Ryan Fitzpatrick, teammates comparing him to Ryan Fitzpatrick is not healthy, because you're never going to be a leader compared to Ryan Fitzpatrick.
I will say, in his defense on the leadership issue, if your team's in trade talks with another quarterback, you're being undercut. Okay, I mean, everybody's looking at that. Now, there's a lot of other issues involved in that too, but it's hard to be a leader with some of the things that went on here. Okay. And so fresh start.
And a coach who didn't like it.
Yeah. So fresh start. We'll see. They're publicly couldn't have said any louder that Tua is their guy. And before even meeting him, they're saying that. So, all right. Luke Fader has to have a question to show. I don't know, is he paying you off, Omar? I'm just curious. Is there something?
Listen, the man asked good questions.
Do
I'm
you
sorry.
think Mike McDaniel will want to keep the status quo with the roster, or he'll look to make major changes to the team in free agency?
This is the question of the offseason, Dave. Like things never remain status quo in the NFL.
Oh, right.
Like,
and I'll say, and look, he's bringing a new system. He's going to get guys who fit his system.
Yeah.
Right. In addition to problems that we all see on the offense, right? So, I mean,
as I've said for multiple years, and bring up, Mike Gesicki does not fit the scheme. So
not this again, Omar. Again.
Not this particular scheme. I'm not going to harp on it anymore. But like, if you think Mike is a good fit for a physical running team, like, you're kind of sadly mistaken. And he's not a wide receiver, so playing him as one. How about you just go get a wide receiver, or upgrade the wide receiver position? But to me, I think it starts with, if we're going to look at remaking the roster, renovating the roster, it starts with the free agents. Emmanuel Ogbah, what are you going to pay? Are you going to franchise tag him? I think he's an important piece to retain here. He lives here in the offseason. He said coming back is a priority, but that was under the guise that Brian Flores is going to be here, and I really don't know how he feels about Josh Boyer.
We're talking sign him 15, 16 million a year, I would assume, something in that neighborhood.
Yeah, we're at least at 15. Yeah. You're doubling his salary.
Yeah.
So, $30 million guaranteed. So you got to figure out what you want to do, whether you want to make that commitment or you want to go get another piece. Xavier Howard, we all know what that situation is. It's a shakedown. You either gonna give it up or give him up. And do you want to continue to deal with Xavier shaking down the team, or do you want to just adjust the contract and fix it one time? So, and this is important because this is a question that Brian Flores asked. Will he ever be happy? Will Xavier ever be satisfied? And I can't answer that question for you. Mike McDaniel will have to get that answer. And really, it starts with redoing the contract.
I think he'd be happy with a 4-year, throwing a nice big number contract. That'd make him happy, right? But these are issues. Where are you as a team? You were trading the last regime. What is your window, right?
Yes. You were trading Xavier the last regime change.
Oh, absolutely. But
here he is older.
He's older. You got a couple great years out of him. Do you want to? And yet he is the linchpin to your defense. He's the centerpiece of it. So you got to, you got a lot of decisions to make.
You got choices to make, but here's my point, and this is something that I always find interesting. You're trading Xavier for a first-round pick, Austin Jackson, Noah Igbenogany.
Right.
Like, what sense does that make?
Right.
Trade a top 30 player for a roll of the dice?
Wait, you were all in on this way a couple years ago, Omar. This was the way to go. Laramie Tunstall.
Stop. Are you really calling me out for the tank? Hey, listen, I didn't say trade away all your good players. That was not part of the tank. I said be bad, go get your quarterback. I didn't say I wanted you to trade away every player who was ever good, which is what they did. Like, that was not part of the tank.
All right.
That was Brian Flores not being able to connect with people. Like, that was not the tank. Like, you didn't have to trade Laramie Tunstall. Like, you didn't. You had to pay him, but if you weren't going to pay him, trade him. And they didn't want to pay him, so they traded him.
Our final question comes from Greg J. Should the Dolphins draft a running back with the 29th pick like Kenneth Walker III, or get a stud in free agency?
I know where Dave Hyde is going to go with this, and he's going let me guess. He's going to say, don't draft a quarterback early. earliest you draft the quarterback, a running back is in the second round. And
well,
I disagree.
They're almost in the second round right now.
Yeah. If you are in love with a running back at 29, take him.
Yeah.
I at this point,
yeah.
when you look at what the free agent is, Melvin Gordon and Leonard Fournette, those are the best free agents that are out there that fit the scheme. Outside of Philip Lindsay and Duke Johnson, I think Philip Lindsay and Duke Johnson definitely they both fit the scheme. I'd offer both a 1 year, $2 million a year deal. Have them come here and, this is going to be a running back by committee situation. That's what they've had with the 49ers. I believe that's what Mike McDaniel believes in. So I'm not necessarily comfortable with going out and spending big money to go get Melvin Gordon, especially at this stage of his career. Leonard Fournette, maybe I would be curious for maybe $3-4 million a year. But he's going to have options. And one thing that I don't think people factor in free agency is free agents have a choice. They don't have to come here. And a lot of times they're choosing based on who the head coach is and who the quarterback is. It's money, location, head coach, quarterback. Right now, Mike McDaniel is a mystery to these guys. And the quarterback, I hate to say it, but he isn't really a selling point to free agents.
Yeah, I'd say as far as a running back at 29, look at the coaching staff. They got a lot of coaches with a good run background in their resumes. Okay, that helps fix the offensive line. I mean, really, you got a lot of experience to say who's going to work and who's not going to work, and that's really what they need. Because I'm of the full belief some of these guys have to be good offensive linemen. They just cannot have swung and miss. But as far as the running back, you look at what San Francisco's done, and they haven't had a horse back there at running back. And so I don't see them, unless they just fall in love with somebody like, and Walker ran all over University of Miami down here in September. So I mean,
who didn't?
But unless they just completely fall in love with a guy, I don't see them using a lot of money or a high draft pick on one.
This coach, I'm just going to be transparent. This month-long coaching search just threw off my draft work, so I don't know anything about any of these draft prospects. I'm going to do some bookkeeping and financial, getting the team's finances in order. After I do that, look at who might be purged by other teams and see what free agency is going to look at. Then I'll begin the draft process, looking at talent. But yes, the minute I fall in love with a back, Dave, you'll know.
Yes, we will. I'll try to talk you some sense into you, Omar, but we'll see.
Listen. The one thing I can say with some conviction about Mike McDaniel is they're not going to be a little wussy team. They're going to be a running team. They're going to be physical, or at least looks like it. Now, they got work to do. They got to remake this offensive line. They got to add some pieces. They got to add some running backs. They got to add some wide receivers, add a tight end who actually can block. But I think they're going to be a physical team. So I believe that's the best strategy. Running the ball would have been the best thing that you could have done for Tua last year, and you were absolutely horrible at it. So get Tua some help, and I think that they're going to do that, and they're going to take the approach of, okay, we can make him better. Darren Bevel, people don't know this, but he was one of the only scouts out there scouting Russell Wilson. He was instrumental in Russell Wilson's development in his early stages of his career. Yeah, he called that pass at the goal line that cost the Super Bowl. But, this guy's worked with young quarterbacks. He worked with Brett Favre. He worked with Aaron Rodgers. He's got a pretty decent resume. So hopefully this fixes Tua and helps him become the quarterback that he has the potential to be. Well, thank you for watching X's and Omars. We will be taking a hiatus. We have our coach. We got most of our staff. We'll be back to give you a preview of free agency in March. Then we'll run a couple laps with you during free agency, and then we'll get prepared for the draft. But right now, X's and Omar's taking a little bit of hiatus. For Dave Hyde, Omar Kelly, and the Sun Sentinel, we thank you for your continued support. We thank you for continuing to watch. And c'est la vie.